All right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the New Yorker Festival. And our discussion today, 13 Years of OJ, a retrospective. What? Why is everyone laughing?
That's the juice.
No, not that. This is the it's a separate subject. If I were running this campaign, we're going to talk about politics. Let me just really quickly introduce our panel. We could spend an awful lot of time in this. These are four of the most distinguished political minds in the country, so I hope they'll forgive me if I give very brief introductions because I really want to get to the discussion. Joe Trippi helped run John Edwards' campaign this year and Howard Dean's 4 years ago. Ed Rollins, Mike Huckabee's campaign this year and many years with Ronald Reagan. Donna Brazile, this year was a term that we used a lot, a superdelegate, and before that she was Al Gore's campaign manager. And Alex Castellanos was a senior official with the Romney campaign and many Republican campaigns before that. Now, just to set things up, I've got a brief video that I'm going to show. It's not meant to be a comprehensive discussion of the primaries, just to remind you of some of the stuff that went on. And let's just watch that, and then we'll begin our conversation.
So let's talk. Let's chat. Let's start a dialogue about your ideas and mine. Because the conversation in Washington has been just a little one-sided lately, don't you think? And we can all see how well that works. And while I can't visit everyone's living room, I can try. And with a little help from modern technology, I'll be holding live online video chats this week starting Monday. So let the conversation begin. I have a feeling it's going to be very interesting.
Suspend any activities, fundraising, travel?
No.
Not at all?
The campaign goes on. The campaign goes on strongly. Elizabeth and I have talked at length about this already, talked with our children about it. Basically, as I mentioned earlier, we've been confronted with these kind of traumas and struggles already in our life, and we know from our previous experience that when this happens, you have a choice. You can go cower in the corner and hide, or you can be tough and go out there and stand up for what you believe in. And both of us are committed to the cause. We're committed to changing this country that we love so much, and we have no intention of cowering in the corner. None whatsoever. We leave here, this press conference, to go to New York and Boston, and tomorrow to California together.
It was a creed written into the founding documents that declared the destiny of a nation. Yes, we can. It was whispered by slaves and abolitionists as they blazed the trail toward freedom. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. It was sung. It was sung by immigrants as they struck out to the distant shores, pioneers who pushed westward against unforgiving wilderness. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. It was the call of workers organized, women who reached for the ballots, a president who chose the moon as our new frontier, and a king who took us to the mountaintop and pointed the way to the promised land. Yes, we can to justice and equality.
Yes, we can.
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 Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. The opportunity.
With the primaries coming so early this year, I've got to tell you, I'm having a little trouble getting my holiday shopping done. So I'll be working to get everyone the same gift: a safe America, lower taxes, secure borders, job growth, fiscal discipline, strict constructionist judges, and probably a fruitcake or something.
A fruitcake?
What? It'll be a really nice fruitcake with a big red bow on it or something like that. I'm Rudy Giuliani, and I approve this message. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
I apologize if there are any small children who were frightened by the Rudy Giuliani. Donna, we had an unusual thing in this campaign. We had the most famous woman in the United States running for president. What happened?
Well, this was supposed to be an all-New York final, the battle of the Big Apple between Rudy Giuliani and Hillary Clinton. But something happened along the way, and it wasn't that campaign commercial. Hillary Clinton did have a conversation with the American people. She galvanized Democrats, Republicans, Independents. We had an exceptional campaign season. But the American people, every 4 years, decide what the election is all about. And this election has been about a 6-letter word, change. And unfortunately, I believe that the strategists, the gurus, the campaign management decided that it was about experience, and that Senator Clinton's experience in Washington, her experience in foreign policy, her experience in domestic issues, along with her great resume, her talent, her name recognition, and money would carry the day in the Democratic primary. What happened was, of course, Senator Obama walked into the arena and he changed the political landscape. He not only put together what I believe one of the most phenomenal campaigns I've seen in modern history, but he really energized and inspired people to get involved in the political process. And while the election was closed, Senator Clinton, I believe, had she won the primaries in North Carolina and Indiana, we would be talking about Hillary Clinton right now, because that would have been a game changer. But instead, we're talking about Barack Obama and the possibility that America might elect in 31 days its first biracial president ever.
Joe, it's very easy now to seem everything seems predestined, preordained. But take us back to the beginning of the campaign, and this was perceived, and I think certainly in Iowa was a 3-person race, and it turned out to be very close. What was the idea? What was the theory behind the argument for John Edwards? What was your plan to win this campaign?
Well, I mean, first of all, this was a really incredible field on the Democratic side, and the reason it was, so hard fought all the way down to the end, was because the nomination, unlike other years, was really worth getting. I mean, if you got the nomination, given everything else that's going on, we should have a pretty good edge as going into the general election. So, you know, we thought that this whole thing was about change and about taking on lobbyists. All the stuff that you're seeing right now, both McCain and Obama talk about in terms of the change was stuff that we were saying and Obama was saying early on. I agree with Donna that Hillary had a huge lead, but it was all predicated on on change, on the experience side of her. She could have gone either way, and they decided to amp up experience over change. We knew our only shot was, given the way the press was looking at Hillary, Obama, Obama, Hillary, I mean, just that's the only fight anybody was interested in looking in. We had one chance and one chance only, and that was to beat them both in Iowa, to win it there, and then have everybody so shocked that John Edwards didn't just beat Barack Obama back then, but beat Hillary Clinton too. And
he came awfully close. I mean,
right,
people forget that.
Barack Obama spent $35 million in Iowa. Hillary Clinton spent $27 million in Iowa. I think we spent under 10. I think it was $8 million. He got 37, 38%. We got 31, 32, and she got 30, 31. So we beat her. We're actually very close to Obama, given sort of a 37, 35 million to 8 million spending. But it didn't happen. I mean, you go in, you have your plan, that's what you try to do. I'm not even making the money excuse. We gave it our best shot and came up short. And I think at that point that was our plan. It didn't work. We came in second. You fight on hoping that you can. No one gets out of these things because they're losing. They get out because they're running out of money at some point. They can't keep going on. I mean, generally, anyway.
Alex, before we turn to the Republican side, you were intimately involved in Iowa. What was your sense of the Democratic race, looking at it from the other side?
You know, this is the year of change, right? Republicans, we've kind of become the cable repairmen of politics. People are. They call us and they're afraid we're not going to be able to fix anything. So if you're a Democrat and you can't win this year, what else do you need? And so looking at the Democratic side of it, I think it's really worthwhile reading Mark Penn's book, Microtrends, in which he says there's not one America, there are hundreds of Americas, all these little slices of the pie. But that line that there's not one America, you know, is tough. If you actually believe that, it's hard to run for the presidency of a country you don't think exists. And I think the Hillary campaign saw a lot of trees and no forest, and therefore had no message. And we saw it on primary and caucus nights in the exit poll numbers. You ask Obama voters why they're voting for Obama, 82% change. Ask Hillary voters, and it was a third change, a third experience, a third cares about people like me, a separate campaign for working class voters, a separate campaign for Hispanics, a separate campaign for women. I think she was ill-served, and I think at the end of the day, that's probably what cost her the opportunity, because Obama ran a great campaign, but the obstacles were formidable, and he had help from Hillary.
Ed, the two thoughts about the Democratic campaign, that this was a campaign that Hillary lost or Obama won. Which is right?
Both. And I think that Obama became a brand, and like any other brand, and the brand was change. And Hillary was running against him as an individual. She thought she could go out, she's got the resume, she has the experience, she could basically beat him one-on-one, and the premise was, I have the resources, I'm the party establishment, we've been through this process before, he will go away very quickly. And I think she never understood the movement, and as someone who, Joe sort of started this with Dean 4 years ago, in the sense that he tapped into the internet, he tapped into a whole variety of things. And the first rally I saw Obama do, in which 3,000-4,000 people showed up, and as people were coming out of the rally, there was someone there taking their email addresses, and 2 hours later there were emails sent to them, and all of a sudden there's a list being built and money's being raised and what have you. And I, like everybody else in the political establishment, said, who is this guy? And, you know, he's obviously been in the Senate for a year and a half, and he's now running for president. How absurd this process is, and obviously he gives a great speech. Her campaign, and obviously not being in it, but watching it, she was the establishment candidate. We didn't have a delegate counter. We were going to go in the primaries. We're running a general election. We're not running the caucuses. Caucuses are too labor intensive. We're not even going to worry about that. We're just going to win, and we're going to have this thing all done by February 4th. And the strategy, which I personally never want to have any campaign or be involved in any campaign that's run by a pollster. A pollster cannot get off the numbers. And for those of us that do other elements of a campaign, we always feel you go drive the numbers. This is what you're about, and you go basically move the numbers by your activity. So I think Hillary basically underestimated Obama. She was, I think, looking at Biden and Edwards and others as the challengers. And at the end of the day, you know, their race was a marathon. She became a much better candidate in the end, but that Iowa, she just didn't understand that Iowa drive.
Yeah, Ed just said something really important. If you're driven by polls, if that's what's going on, and the pollsters driving the whole thing, Howard Dean never exists in 2003, 2004, because every poll said the American people supported the war 80-20. So there's like there's no pollster who would then tell you, well, let's go out and oppose it and challenge the party and challenge the party's establishment. Like we did in 2003, 2004. So I agree with Ed. What she needed to do was you need to drive the country to where you want to lead it. And if you do that and the country agrees with you, you're going to wipe everybody out. Instead, they sort of held back, just thought they were going to win, and didn't really try to push anything anywhere except I've got the experience and I'm ready for change.
Donna, you've been very involved in the Democratic Party itself and the structure. One of the ideas behind moving up all the primaries, and we had this incredible concentration of primaries on Super Tuesday, which some of us started calling Super Duper Tuesday because there were so many primaries that day, and it was supposed to settle the race very quickly, and it didn't do that. It in fact had a somewhat ambiguous result where it certainly sorted out that it was a two-person race, but it was not dispositive. Do you think that was a good thing or a bad thing for the party that this race went on and on between Hillary and Obama?
I think, in hindsight, it was a good thing, because I think overall it strengthened our party. Yeah, we had some tension. We had a lot of tension. We had a lot of, internally, it was not healthy at times to see a fight between who had the greatest disadvantage. Is it race or is it gender? And when you're a black female, you're like, wait a minute. The two coexist. But often I would say, well, I'm a Southerner, I could support John Edwards. I'm getting old and grumpy. Maybe I should look at John McCain. But when you look at the health of the party, I mean, this is a party that suffered in 2000 and 2004. This was healthy because it helped to revitalize the Democratic Party. To see so many people register and participate in every election night, and of course, forgive me, Joe Trippi, for not including you in the best political team, but every election night, but you can join us any night.
That's right. Yeah.
We would look at the results and analyze them, and we saw this huge surge of Democrats turning out. Meanwhile, the Republicans kept going down and down and down and down. So was it okay? Yes. Was it at times very painful to watch race become a topic of conversation, sexism, misogyny in the media, all of the things that we Democrats go through as part of our growing pains? I think long-term it will be healthy for the party. Now, the primary process is broken. I would hope that whoever's in charge, because I don't know if I'm going to ever raise my hand again, whoever's in charge of putting together the schedule for 2012 will recognize that we should not hold primaries or caucuses so close to college bowl season. We should wait until we know the results of the Super Bowl before we hold a massive round of primaries like we did on Tsunami Tuesday, which, by the way, was Fat Tuesday for those of us from New Orleans. And then I also believe that we need to come up with a regional rotating primary system because states out there, especially when you have politicians involved from both, the Republican and Democratic Party, they want to pull their states up because the premise behind putting California and New York and New Jersey, if you're a Hillary person, you're saying, or Obama, and Illinois moved up as well, you want to have as many states, as many clusters because you're counting your delegates. And you're like, this is the day I'm going to clinch the nomination. All my opposition will be, cast aside. If you're Republican, like Rudy Giuliani, you go for winner take all, and you say, okay, this is the day that I'm going to, destroy my opponent. So, but it's bad for democracy, and it's bad for the American people, and to have all of these caucuses and primaries where you don't know the rules, and then you have a two-step process where you go out and vote at 5 o'clock, and then you have to come back at 9 o'clock and show your receipt from voting. It's confusing. So I think overall, the system enabled Obama and Hillary to revitalize the Democratic Party. There was a lot of tension, but the system is broken, and we need to fix it so that we never again elect our presidential candidates this way.
Alex?
I would take minor exception. If it's that broken, gee, you seem to be winning. It seems to be working for you. I wouldn't hurry to fix it too much. Look, more people are involved this year than ever in American politics. More people have more information, have participated in the process, have contributed money, are watching this stuff on TV. I am reminded a little bit of the old story of the Duke of Wellington when the train first came, I think, to 18th century England. He said, this is allowing the common people to move about unnecessarily. and here, there's a lot of democracy happening here, and I'm sure we can prevent it if we work at it, but I don't think it's an unhealthy thing. A lot of these states did move up early. Guess what? They guessed wrong. If Massachusetts had stayed where it was late in the process, it might have been a decisive state. They're figuring it out. There's not going to be that rush next time. So I thought the process actually this year worked great.
Yeah, what about that? I mean, this changing the structure of the primaries. So go ahead, Joe.
Well, I mean, look, every time the party tries to mess around with it, they screw it up. I mean, the 1988 campaign, what happened after 84 with Fritz Mondale, the National Democratic Party decided that they were going to put a whole bunch of southern states on the same day with the sole purpose of nominating a southerner in 1988. Why? Because Carter won and Southerner would win. That Super Tuesday delivered up a guy named Mike Dukakis from Massachusetts. It doesn't work. You can't game the system by putting these states out there. I do want to talk about something Alex said, and what no one seems to really, I think, pay much attention to. We talk about it a lot, but how the internet and all this stuff has changed all of this. What happened was Barack Obama got, and Hillary in her first talk got, that this was going to be different, that you had to organize from the bottom up. And the network, the number of people who are on broadband, that train that Alex is talking about that's bringing a little bit too much democracy, is screwing up what the party decides it wants to do. So I guarantee you, in 2012 or 2016, and then the next time we have a contested race for president, somebody's going to make the Obama campaign look like a joke, just like the Obama campaign made the Howard Dean campaign look like a joke, because the network's getting bigger. Millions more Americans are on that network, are watching broadband, are able to see will.i.am video, or watch Hillary Clinton make her announcement, or watch Obama for 35 minutes give an entire speech and email the link to their friends. And that is changing the way you win a primary, I think, and will change the way we're nominating people in the future.
Yeah, Ed, go ahead.
There's one very fundamental part of this that we haven't discussed. We used to have public financing. The part of the public financing that did not work was the primary process. There wasn't enough money. There's enough money, $85 million is enough money to run a general election, as John McCain is doing with the party's support. It's not enough money to have limits in the primary process. So this cycle, everybody said it's going to cost. I had a bunch of candidates come to me and say, what's it going to cost to actually be in this race? I said, because everything's so front-loaded. I threw the figure out to a New York Times reporter. I said, if you're going to compete in Florida, California, these big states, it's $100 million. You got to go raise $100 million. And everybody sort of said, God, you can't raise $100 million. The only campaign that tried to go raise $100 million was obviously Romney could go to his ATM machine. And we were all very envious of that. And John McCain, who had been sort of a front runner, a Washington establishment, because we're sort of a party that basically thinks that whoever has the name ID or whoever the Washington lobbyist or whatever you decide is the candidate. John McCain, for 2 or 3 years, ran around being on all the talk shows, and he was allegedly the front raiser. So he built a campaign to spend $100 million by Super Tuesday. Unfortunately, he didn't raise $100 million, and he's spending at that level, broke his campaign down, and obviously changed the dynamics. On our side, our race was a NASCAR race. We had a bunch of front load, people with big name IDs, Giuliani, Fred Thompson, all the rest of it. All the cars went off. I had a little dinky car in the back, Mike Huckabee. So as these guys all crashed, we sort of went up, and then obviously we get run off the road too. But the problem with the process is the idea that everybody wants to be a player, as opposed to what's in the best interest strategically of a process that goes on for 3 or 4 months, in which you're not eliminated in the first week or the second week or the third week. If you really are a viable candidate and you can build organization and you can have some momentum and you can get some name ID through free media as well as the paid media, and that people really will have a choice by the time they get to March, April, May. We had a nominee picked in March on our side who then did nothing till the convention. And basically lost every advantage he might have had. You had a marathoner, which you were in a knockdown, drag-out fight, which I think benefited your party immeasurably because there was an enthusiasm and obviously we were able to come back together. But we have now broken the public finance system. No one is going to go back to that system, I think. And I think that's, to a certain extent, unfortunate because it then means that more and more rich candidates will jump in or candidates will start. If John McCain loses this race, I promise you there'll be 4 candidates start the day after raising money, getting ready to go 4 years from now.
Let me just, I'd like to sort of turn to the Republican race in a minute, but I'd like to just address one subject first, which hasn't come up yet. And when I watch that video, I see John and Elizabeth Edwards, and there's something, and it's poignant. And that's because John Edwards has now disappeared as a public figure because of his relationship with this woman, Real Hunter. Did you know Real Hunter?
No, I got there. When I got there, she had been gone for months.
During the campaign, there were rumors about her, and it came up, I think, in some tabloids and some, and certainly on the web. Did you ever have a conversation with John Edwards about her?
Yeah. And it was, this is ridiculous, this is the National Enquirer, and I believed him. And we've talked after, since, and, it's sad. I mean, it's just absolutely sad that his voice is gone. And
I mean, not even invited to the Democratic convention.
Yeah, and I mean, this guy who was leading, both of them, leading the fight against poverty in the party and to take on, and I think healthcare. Look, the thing about the healthcare debate in the party was that there was none really. Both Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama at the time wanted not to have any plan or a detailed plan because Hillary Clinton believed that that's what killed the last one. That the more details are out there, the more they're going to get are going to lose you an election. Or cause problems, so she didn't really want one. Obama was not getting out front. Elizabeth and John Edwards worked together, get a real detailed plan out there. Obama follows suit with his, and now Edwards is running around saying, basically, my plan's better, but at least Barack Obama has a plan, and pressures Hillary Clinton into having one. Now we have a real debate. And I think that's the thing that really was served. I'm not trying to get off the subject, but I think the thing that was really served by all of this, I agree with Ed, it's not just that the long process built a party, but Barack Obama has been through a jillion debates with really good debater. John Edwards is a damn good, razor-sharp debater. And Hillary ain't no slouch either. So you get that happening, he's had everything but the kitchen sink thrown at him by the time he gets to this point in the election. And so it's going to be very hard to throw this guy off. I mean, he's really gotten his policy to where he wants it. The machine that they're running out there, the get out the vote mechanism is there. And he's not a guy who's going to make any mistakes. He's been through it. And a lot of that is due to the other people, Chris Dodd, Joe Biden, the other people, John Edwards, that were in this race and helped shape this thing and make it sort of as tough and lean as it is.
Let's move on to the Republican race. Alex, this was a wide open race. You had neither a sitting president nor a sitting vice president running. You had a lot of candidates who were plausible nominees. You did not have sort of a big three the way you did in the Democratic Party. You had Romney, you had McCain, you had Fred Thompson, you had Rudy Giuliani, and Mike Huckabee, who turned out to be a very strong candidate. Talk about how the Romney campaign began, and what was the theory that was going to get him the nomination?
How the Romney campaign began, let's see. I met him in July of '06 in his kitchen and in Massachusetts, and he introduced me. I said, Alex, I'd like you to meet my wife, Ann, and here's my other wife, Beth. And that's how, it was his chief of staff. But I met this remarkable guy who, tremendously inspiring. You meet him and you go, oh my God, there isn't a single problem this country can't solve. And that was Mitt Romney. And then you start learning about him, and he's got this tremendous bio that everything he's touched, he's transformed for the better. And so we started with a campaign, and the theory of the campaign was very simple. And it's amazing how the marketplace almost creates the right products in politics and in the rest of the economy, I guess, as well. But our campaign was very simple. One of the first things I did in the campaign was I put a desk plate on Mitt Romney's desk, and it said, America is never stuck. Like Harry Truman, the buck stops here. And the Mitt Romney rap was going to be, some people say America's stuck, that we're stuck spending too much in Washington, stuck with insecure borders, stuck with health care we can't afford, energy we dependent on other people, stuck without respect in the world, stuck in an unpopular war. Well, Washington may be stuck. Washington may be unable to get things done, but the American people are never stuck. If we can change Washington, America can do anything. And that was going to be the Romney campaign. Our first bumper sticker was America Can. But campaigns have to make a commitment to a direction. Campaigns, you can take the high road to Rome or the low road to Rome. You can't, and either way might get you there, but you can't take both and get anywhere. And so, you know, the Romney campaign, I think, foundered because, not because of was he conservative or not or that, it was a sin of omission. There was a story there of a guy who, we had the transformational chain. He changed business, he changed the Olympics, he changed government in Massachusetts. What are we going to change now? Washington. Change Washington, America can achieve anything. We never quite agreed to do that until New Hampshire, until we lost New Hampshire. And then, of course, the geometry was not the best. We had this Huckabee guy pop up. And debates...
Go ahead.
No, debates are great levelers. And when you have 100 of them, candidates without money have a platform. And, you know, Rudy was up here. Huckabee was here. You have enough debates. Look what happens, the guy with the skills. So all of a sudden, we have this Huckabee guy splitting the right, and on the left we have McCain, who started as a parking lot. There were all the voters there. We'd go to focus groups. People would say, McCain, yeah, that's great, you know, but I'm kind of waiting for anyone else. And then Rudy comes along and splits that. So as long as Rudy and McCain were splitting the vote on the left, we had a shot. And then Rudy runs the worst campaign in history. And that collapses and leaves McCain. Rudy decides, well, I'll run in those states where there aren't primaries or caucuses. And I'll be the national candidate. And by the time he gets to Florida, guess what? If you let the other team run up and down the field for 4 or 5 months, you're not the national front runner anymore.
The beginning of our campaign at CNN really was a debate that we held at St. Anselm's College. Donna was there. It was a Republican debate. And I had done mostly legal stuff, and I was sort of new to the political side, and I watched that debate, and I remember saying, and I said it on the air, I said, Mike Huckabee is the class of this field. I mean, this guy is really good. And I think a lot of people had that reaction, Ed. Mike Huckabee is a very good politician. You got involved a little later than that, I know, but he had lightning in a bottle for a little while, didn't he?
He did. I first met Mike Huckabee at a cocktail party in a small or large apartment with a small crowd here in New York, and he was selling his diet book at that point in time, and it was a little book party, and he asked if he could have 5 minutes with me afterwards, and was, you know, sort of he could get to sit down and talk to Ed Rollins, and he said, I'm thinking about running for president. I just finished being governor. Of all the people, I did not know him. I knew everybody else, and I knew everybody else well. I've known McCain for 30 years. I've known Giuliani for forever. Knew Fred Thompson forever. And so I spent 5 minutes with him in a little office library. But the impressive thing was he stood up in this cocktail party, which is the worst environment you can possibly talk about. People who were invited because of the host, no one knew who Mike Huckabee was. And he gave this extraordinary speech. And I said to my wife, having worked for Ronald Reagan, having been his White House political director and his campaign manager, watching the power of a communicator, in which I think the most important thing a president has is first to have a very secure self and a confidence in themselves, but the ability in time of crisis to go to the country and make your case. And that gives a president power that moves a Congress, and I obviously watched Reagan do that. Clinton was a tremendous communicator, and we have probably the worst communicator in the history of the country, which may contribute to being the worst president in the history of the country with the president incumbent. So
Be careful. This is a New Yorker magazine crowd, so there's a lot of sympathy for George Bush in here. So you want to be careful if you say anything critical.
So anyways, I spent 5 minutes with him. I said, Mike, wish you well. How much money have you raised? He said, none. And how much money do you think you can raise? None. How much money do you think it's going to cost? I said, geez, you got to have $10, $15 million this year to basically be a viable candidate. We thanked each other. I said, call me anytime you want a little counsel. I watched the debates like everybody else. I was with Lou Dobbs' show. I was up at St. Anselmo, and so I watched the debate. I watched a bunch more debates. And I said, this guy can do it. This guy, not win the presidency, but this guy can communicate and connect with ordinary voters. Bill Clinton said to me one other time that this guy is, watch out for, he said, I've watched this guy. We threw everything possible at him in Arkansas. He followed us. He is the best communicator. He's the real deal. So, make a long story short, I end up sending him an email saying, you know, I think long and hard, watch debates. If you want some help, I'm happy to help you. So I joined the campaign to discover the campaign is 10 kids, literally 10 kids. The national campaign political director is his 25-year-old daughter, who's fabulous. The general counsel is his daughter-in-law. And and I had conversations with these wonderful, wonderful young people about what was life like before you had BlackBerries, and you actually ran campaigns without cell phones, and how did that work? And I'd say, well, you have to get off an airplane and find a payphone. And they'd say, what's a payphone? So it was an extraordinary experience, and they wanted to call me Dad, and I said, no, I have a little 13-year-old who calls me Dad, and she gets everything she wants. You can call me Papa. So I became Papa Bear on the campaign. And it was this extraordinary campaign because this guy could connect with people. And Iowa, the beauty of an Iowa is you can go out without money. I think we spent probably $600,000 in Iowa to win it. And it became about people. But the other thing we did is we did 350 interviews on television. Mm-hmm. And he could get on the cable channel. We had
he was on CNN more than any of the best political team on television.
That's true.
He was on constantly.
And he was on MSNBC, and we took any opportunity to communicate. When I started in this business 40 years ago, I had a wonderful political mentor, Jess Unruh, who was a legendary Democrat, and I started my life as a Democrat. And he said to me, kid, you got to understand politics. It's about three things. And if you're not focusing on these three things, you're going to lose. And the three things are you find your voter, you communicate with your voter, and you get them to the polls. That's it. Now, 40 years later, we have hundreds of ways more to communicate, to find your voters, communicate particularly with your voters, and getting them to the polls, as we now have a 30-day period. But still, that's the same thing. And so, since we had no money, we did, I mean, one of the great stories that I think is the epitome, we had a blog, we had 500 bloggers who blogged every day for us at Huckabee. We had thousands of kids out there. And then we had the phenomenon of Chuck Norris, when he said, we have Chuck Norris has endorsed us, I said, gee, that's great. It didn't used to make movies back, Texas Ranger. What I didn't realize is Chuck Norris is this gigantic figure on the website with kids. And everywhere kids would come to see Chuck Norris. We'd have 3,000 people come to see Huckabee, we'd have 10,000 people come to see Chuck Norris. But the story I'm going to tell is we had a blogger press conference. And we had 50 bloggers. We invited them to a big hotel lobby or ballroom in Iowa. And sitting around the room, which is thousands of press people come to any event you go to. There's 8 people from Iowa, and there's 50 press behind them. And as you get more and more of a front runner, there's 1,000 people in the room, 998 of them press. Crowds are bigger. Around the room, around the 50 bloggers who Mike was taking questions and blogging out to all the rest of them, were all the cameras, all the major political players, all the media players. And I sat there and I said, I'm watching the dinosaurs. The game is now about the internet and the bloggers. And they all wanted to ask questions. I said, no. Mike said, no. This is their press conference. And I think that's in essence what the difference is. And we got as far as we could go. And the reality is, if we won Iowa, we had 5 days to get known in New Hampshire, which we were totally unknown. Then we had everything so compressed. So a Huckabee campaign may have had a longer life if it wasn't for this compression.
Just as I asked Alex to handicap the Republican race, the Democratic race, from a Democratic perspective, how did you look at the Republican side, at their range of candidates?
The Republicans have this they're different than Democrats in the way the way their process works. I mean, their process tends to it's the name ID, the establishment really rallies around the guy that Washington ordains is going to be the next in line. It's much almost
that's been true in every campaign, including this one, that ultimately the front runner
always wins. Well, first of all, let me make one caveat. Both party establishments have done just about everything they can to make sure that happens. I mean, the rules. Jimmy Carter got in as a outside Washington guy, and the Democratic Party immediately changed all the rules, so that will never happen again, kind of thing. But the Republicans have always been that way, and it's very important, very, very difficult for any kind of insurgent in either party to actually get the nomination and go on and win the White House. That's only happened with Carter in 76, and Obama will be the only time since then that a Democrat who wasn't the party establishment choice didn't take it. And so when you start looking at this thing, you're looking at McCain. He's the guy. And I was in Iowa rolling around on a bus with John Edwards, and I immediately said, this guy Huckabee's going to take this thing. I mean, I think Edwards was actually the first one who said to me,
and how could you
Huckabee's
tell?
the problem. You could feel it on the ground. There were sort of this energy that Ed's talking about was just everywhere you look. We'd have people at our stops with Huckabee signs on the back. They were everywhere, and you could just tell there was something different going on there that McCain and the others didn't have. I think the problem is once a lot of the establishment sees that happening, they actually hold on to the front runner even more. Part of the problem is, which is leveling right now, is one of the tools the establishment in both parties has money. All the big money goes with the guy they think is going to win. So Giuliani and McCain start getting that kind of money. The thing that Ed's talking about, where these kids are out there and they're 500 bloggers and people actually send in $15, $25, actually gave them a longer shot than they had. That's certainly what happened with Edwards. I mean, people didn't realize the amount of money we were getting over the net that actually kept us going much longer than we should have gone, or they wouldn't without that money. And so, we knew Huckabee was moving, but the more you looked at the calendar, it was like he doesn't have enough resources, and the Army can't get dispersed that quickly to stop it, which is sort of like where I think this is by 2000, by the next couple cycles, that's not going to happen. Huckabee's going to upset the apple cart. It won't be the ordained person out there because they'll have the right resources and the ability to get out there.
It happened this time.
Sorry?
It happened this time.
Yeah.
Spell that out. What do you mean it happened?
Well, Obama took on the Democratic establishment and won. On the Republican side, also, the wounded soul of the Republican Party, there was no one to speak to that. I mean, the Republican brand was supposed to be less spending, less government, make things kind of work, do a war right, things like that. And so there's a little bit of a vacuum out there for Republicans, somebody to speak to them, and Huckabee filled it.
But less spending, tough. Why wasn't Donna Rudy Giuliani that candidate? I mean, Rudy Giuliani on paper looked pretty good.
Because I believe the Republicans were looking for the next Ronald Reagan and not necessarily someone to follow George Bush. Now, as a liberal progressive Democrat attending the Republican debates, that was like the most interesting experience of my lifetime. Days I didn't know if I would get out there alive, especially if Ron Paul rallied the crowd, like, yes, I like Ron Paul. And then Huckabee, of course, being a guitar-playing, folksy, down-home Southerner, I enjoyed his spirit. And by the way, we should all go to Hope. We've had a saxophonist, now a guitarist. I'm waiting for the little drummer boy. That town is really turning out talent. But I think the Republicans really took the wrong lessons from their defeat in 2006. It was clear to most of us that the country was tired of the war, that the country was tired of Washington, tired of the president and vice president, wherever he is. You notice he's not around when we need a bailout or rescue. I mean, who knows where he's hunting today. But the country really wanted something different. And what the Republicans came up with was, okay, we need Ronald Reagan. We need someone to inspire us. They wanted someone to inspire their base, not the country. And so the entire debate was predicated on who could inspire this base, who could inspire the Christian evangelicals, the social conservatives. And I felt that there was a vacuum in the room. And I was looking for, well, who will emerge? Now, I have to admit, as a Catholic, as a woman, Mitt Romney did look the part. I'm not saying nothing else. And so I would just look there. Now, Rudy Giuliani, he never had anything. I mean, this guy changes positions quicker than I can change my you-know-what. And so I'm like, no. Tom Tancredo, whew, Sam Brownback, Gilmore, Duncan Hunter. I mean, some of these guys belonged
Wow, I'm
in the Stone
impressed
Age.
that you can come up with all those names.
I went to those
I didn't
debates.
remember them.
I went to those debates. I'm telling you, it was like being in a Twilight Zone.
No,
One thing
Alex,
about-
And then
Rudy.
I kept wanting John McCain. No, this is true. I kept saying, well, at least John McCain will piss off the base and appeal to independents. That's what I kept thinking. That's John McCain. He'll shake it up. And look at the John McCain we've now come to know.
Rudy could have run a better campaign, obviously, but not just in terms of where he ran it, but we heard a lot of 9/11, and okay, but when you paint the wall the same color all the time, the house doesn't really look a lot different. And so 9/11, 9/11, there's a better story. Rudy could have gone, hey, Times Square, see the porno shop? It's now a Kmart. I've transformed this city. I've cut taxes. I've grown jobs. I'm going to do that for America. We can compete in this world. There's a new global challenge. We need somebody who knows how to do this. That would have been a Rudy campaign. Why? Because that's what this election is about. This election is either an arrow going forward or an arrow going back. And we knew that on the Republican side. They've obviously figured that out on the Democratic side. This is a new frontier election. Just like a Kennedy, when the structure of the world around you collapses and it's either FDR and the Great Depression, okay, we get the New Deal, somebody looking for the future. When JFK, Sputnik, oh my God, where are we in the arms race? A new frontier. Reagan, again, the Cold War, a new structure of the world, and we need somebody to take us to the shining city. This election, new metastasizing security threats, globalization. All of a sudden, the old structure is gone, and we're looking for a new direction. Those are the moments we look for those new frontier guys, and I think that's Obama's advantage.
Let me just stop you right there, and let's move on to the general election. McCain, Obama, and just again, not a comprehensive summary, but let's play the next video with a few highlights of the general election campaign.
That is why the greatest danger of all is to allow new walls to divide us from one another. The walls between old allies on either side of the Atlantic cannot stand. The walls between the countries with the most and those with the least cannot stand. The walls between races and tribes, natives and immigrants, Christians and Muslims and Jews cannot stand. These now are the walls we must tear down.
You know that there's been tremendous turmoil in our financial markets in Wall Street, and people are frightened by these events. Our economy, I think, still, the fundamentals of our economy are strong, but these are very, very difficult times. And I promise you, we will never put America in this position again. We will clean up Wall Street. We will reform government, and this is a failure.
Hockey moms, they say the difference between a hockey mom and a pit bull? Lipstick.
Let's just list this for a second. John McCain says he's about change too. And so I guess his whole angle is, watch out, George Bush. Except for economic policy, healthcare policy, tax policy, education policy, foreign policy, and Karl Rove-style politics, we're really going to shake things up in Washington. That's not change. That's just calling the same thing something different. But you can't, you can put lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig.
Do you agree with the Bush Doctrine?
In what respect, Charlie?
Bush, what do you interpret it to be?
His worldview?
No, the Bush Doctrine, enunciated September 2002, before the Iraq War.
I believe that what President Bush has attempted to do is rid this world of Islamic extremism, terrorists who are hell-bent on destroying our nation. There have been blunders along the way, though. There have been mistakes made.
Fun.
Yes.
I have a friend who's a professor and who said that, he was watching the Sarah Palin interview with Charlie Gibb. She says, I know that look. He says, that's the look my students give me when they haven't done the reading. I'm sorry, but I digress.
No, it's true.
A smart-ass college professor.
Smart-ass college professor. This race seems to be in a fairly stable state now, with Obama holding a fairly significant lead. Was there anything John McCain could have done, Alex, that could have changed the trajectory of this race? And I'm talking about starting with the conventions. Once they, including picking a vice president, forward. That what could McCain have done differently to have the trajectory of this race different?
I think at that point, probably very little, because at that point McCain's campaign was very much like Hillary's campaign. They had a good case. Hey, why not a Barack Obama? Young, inexperienced. He's never captained a boat in stormy seas, and there's a big storm out there. Left of center in a moderate to right of center country. They had a pretty good case to make. But what they couldn't tell you is why McCain, until they picked Palin. And with Palin, they got a message. And that message was change Washington, reform. And it was outsider, little guy populist. Washington's not going to change itself. Sometimes we Americans have to go do it. It was a message. And when the economy came along last week and a week ago, the meltdown, that just swamped the boat. And it's nothing that McCain's campaign did, but all of a sudden we went back to being not outsiders, change Washington. We were Wall Street, rich, Bush economy. All of a sudden that Bush guy was back on stage, and the brand was defined again by Bush and what the party had been, not by McCain and what we hoped the brand would be. So at that point, I think the boat was swamped. I think McCain's real opportunity was before the conventions, was during the summer.
And what could he have done?
He could have talked about what this country needs to do, and he could have told us what his campaign was about. And I think, hey, there's a big global economy out there. There is a new frontier. This is the most promising and perilous time in this country's history. Americans are really good at these moments. This is what we do best. We go explore and create and build. This is built for us. Let's go get it. Let's go compete and win in this world. And if we restore our economics, are we this country or are we this country? I'm John McCain, and I say we can be this. We didn't get that sense from the campaign, and I think that would have put him in a position to draw a real contrast now at the tail.
What about that, Joe? Do you think that there? I mean, if you look at the polls, there really, once the race was narrowed down to the two candidates, you had for most of the summer, you had Obama holding about a 3-point lead. Palin's picked, and McCain briefly sort of pulls ahead by about that amount. Mm-hmm. Then, in the period leading up to and then the financial crisis, Obama has vaulted ahead. Is there anything, I mean, is this simply a matter of responding to events, or could the campaigns have had anything to do with this?
I agree with Alex that the McCain campaign's best shot at reframing the race was in the summer, in which they did sort of take the Clinton, almost started to look exactly like the Clinton campaign in terms of how they handled stuff and sort of their language about, experience versus the guy with none and sort of the way they took it. They actually didn't get a message. They never had a message. The only message they had was it wasn't even the first couple days of the convention. It was the last day or day 2 of the convention that they had a message. And then they, I don't think it was the financial crisis that took them off message. I don't think they sustained that message for a day after the convention. I mean, they really didn't. I mean, maybe Sarah Palin moving around out there sort of kept the original Maverick thing going for a couple days, or a spot here, a spot there. But essentially, They still haven't developed a message, I don't think. And I think had they had one, they could have used the financial crisis to take it to the Democrats. I mean,
the financial
Democrats
crisis
taking more of this Wall Street money than anybody out there.
Was there any way for a Republican to take this financial crisis to their advantage, or is this simply a burden that any Republican would have?
Mike Huckabee was a populist. And he, by the end of the campaign, was having the biggest crowds of anybody. I mean, even after McCain had it wrapped up, Huckabee's still getting 10, 15,000 people to show up. Even after we drop out, he's still getting 25, 28% of the vote when there's no competition.
That's true. In those races, people forget that after he dropped out, he was getting a third of the vote in a lot of states.
John McCain has never had a conversation with Mike Huckabee.
After the race?
Never had a conversation. They were in Arkansas one day campaigning, which we set after, and they shook hands and spent 30 minutes. And Mike Huckabee understood the populist message. It was his message. And the messenger, as I always say, the messenger is the most important. It's always great debates. Newt Gingrich and I used to have these great battles about it's the message that's so important. I said, it's the messenger that's important. Ronald Reagan got elected because he wasn't Jimmy Carter. But the fact that he believed in something and articulated something gave that message credibility, which is the supply side and all the rest of it. In this particular case, a Republican running as a populist against the Wall Street, against the greed, could have been a strong message because it moved you away from the establishment. It got us back to our fiscal roots, which we had obviously violated over the last 6 years, 4 years in particular in the Congress. But John McCain does not believe in the populist message. So when he tries to go out and be the populist, there's no credibility to it. And he's not a messenger. He is a brave man who went through a very difficult experience 40 years ago that very few of us probably could have survived. But that gave him a career. When they talk about him doing bipartisan stuff in the Congress, it's not him bringing 25 Republicans across the aisle. It's the Democrats, Kennedy or Feingold, coming to him and having him sign on their legislation. He's a man who is not liked by his own party. And the idea that he's going to go and, as last week when he got into this stupid, idiotic thing about, I'm going to get the House Republicans can't stand him. He's like all the senators. He has a disdain for House members. And I think to a certain extent, by jumping into that fray, he exposed himself as a guy who couldn't really be the leader. If he stayed out of that fray and the bill ended up being whatever, but the last chance was when he talks about earmarks, I'm going to settle all this kind of crap. When they added $150 billion, he could have walked in the Senate the other night and saying, this is ridiculous. You strip this $150 billion of special interest money out of this bill right today, or I'm walking out of the floor and
that is such an interesting point. I mean, one of the things that I was shocked by is what was in it for McCain to vote for this bill?
Nothing.
Why not just say, you're a bunch of bums. This shows what's wrong with Washington. The hell with you all. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, because I think I was going to point out the one critical thing as you're going down this final stretch is who are the American people having doubts about? And if you're John McCain, you should be sitting pretty, having the American people have doubts about Barack Obama. Is he really ready for this? Can he really be commander-in-chief? Frankly, that's where they all were the day after the convention, the Republican convention. He sort of had people exactly, that's the fight you want to make the rest of the way. Instead, in about a 2-week period, the guy everybody's having doubts about are John McCain. He picks Sarah Palin, which no one can figure out, even in his own party, what that was really about. He then has this erratic campaign where he's in, he's out, he's going to suspend it, he's not going to suspend it. I'm not going to the debate unless, and then he shows up. Then you have, what I'm trying to say here is what's happened in the last 2 or 3 weeks, the reason this thing really is starting to unravel is the guy that he should have been there, the war horse with 26 years in Washington. Do you have doubts about this guy or not?
Well,
and instead, all the doubts are about him. I
think some of that is true. However, let's remember this though. Again, sometimes there are big things that happen in campaigns, and when you have the entire global economy threatening to melt down, that's worth noting. The Republican brand was defined by George Bush and all the troubles we've had the past eight years. This campaign's gone on longer than a life sentence. And so they voters got to know both of these candidates, and the Republican brand gradually became not what it was, but what it could be, McCain-Palin. And the convention finally gave them a message. It was outsider populist. It was change. It was starting to work. So despite all of the troubles and the lack of a message in the summer, something was working. And then, well, you know, the entire economy catches on fire. Okay. What happens? The Republican brand again becomes Bush economy. It becomes Wall Street and Paulson. It becomes establishment and insider. And yes, I think Ed's right, Joe, you're right. He could have stood up to that, and he could have said, not on my watch. Main Street I think, understood the gravity of the economic problem. Just Main Street had no confidence at all that throwing money at this problem was going to do anything to solve it. And that's why I think a lot of people spoke up about it. But I wouldn't say, look, it's particularly McCain's any erraticism or that kind of thing. This is a big thing, and I don't know that any Republican could have done well in the worst week in Republican politics in years that I can remember.
Donna, looking ahead, 4.5 weeks to go, what do you worry about as a Democrat?
I never worry. I'm a Democrat. I just wet my bed and pray. One way to relieve yourself. The truth is I went to the Republican convention. That was also a great experience. And the first 2 days, it was like a 4-car funeral. I even prayed with the Oklahoma delegation. I felt so sad for them. And, you know, they didn't like, oh, my God, what is this about? You know, you got a hurricane. We're back into a Katrina moment. Everyone was like, you know, they were gripped. They didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, there was a revival that took place when Sarah Palin, you know, got to the stage. And they you know, again, they're looking for a hero. This is like an action, you know, film. And here come the hero. And it became a church revival. Everybody was in, you know, the choir. Drill, baby, drill, which I didn't get. But I'm like, if Republicans find something to sing about, let them sing. And then McCain's speech, which, by the way, thank God for coffee. It was a looking back. And that's when I knew. I said, oh, God, we're going to have 2 weeks of Palin fever because she was hot. And then I said, but McCain's going to step on it. I just know John McCain. And sure enough, it wasn't the economy. 1 week before the market started to, you know, burst, John McCain had already stepped on his momentum from the convention because he walked out of the convention being the new change candidate, the Maverick on the move with his, you know, pit bull in tow, and back on the attack, putting Barack Obama on the defense, and he stepped right because he went back to being the candidate of experience, looking back, using his bio, not really moving the country forward. So 31 days out, here's what I would do. And I'm a cold, calculating, you know, I'll watch your blood on the floor and then mop it up the day after election. I would deploy Bill, I would call Bill Clinton if I was Barack Obama. I mean, I'm sure he's listed. And anybody know Bill Clinton? He's in Harlem, so I mean, he has an address too. Get Bill Clinton and say, here is a plane. It is, you know, with all of the snacks you need on it or whatever. Carrots, peanuts, whatever, healthy food. I need you in Ohio. I need you in Florida. I need you in Pennsylvania. And I need you there like yesterday. Help me lock those states up. I would call Hillary Clinton and give her the same drill and perhaps put her out west in Colorado and Nevada. And then I would call Al Gore, saving the planet somewhere on Earth, and get him back down to Earth and put him in Washington State and Oregon. And after I've deployed all of my surrogates in a strategic way, this is about 270 electoral votes. Senator Obama has to close that argument. I mean, there's so much out there. People want a strong, compelling, passionate closing argument in this election. And if he provides that, no matter all of these doubts, no matter the elephant in the room, race, let's put it out there, he's biracial.
Yeah, let's talk about that before we go. I mean, before we go to questions. You know, a lot of times people have said...
That's the black side or the white side? There you go, there you go. Give it all you got, give it all you got. There you go. My black side's happy, too. I got a little white in me.
I got a little black in me.
I know you got some soul, brother. This one, too. Everybody know Joe was raised by black women. You can tell. You put him near some fried chicken, you would think Popeyes and the Colonel merged. That's Joe. All right, Jeff.
I'm sorry.
You're back to moderating.
It's Donna's world, and we just live in it.
I'm in New York.
Something you hear from people in the real world all the time is, yeah, but is America going to elect a black president? I don't care what the polls say. What do you think, Joe?
I don't think it's... look, I was Tom Bradley's deputy campaign manager in 1980.
The Bradley effect.
The Bradley effect.
Just explain what the Bradley effect is.
It was where we were... every single poll on the planet had us up by 10 points, and all the exit polls had us up by about that amount, and we lost the race by 35,000 votes, 27,000 precincts in California, so about a vote a precinct. But there was clearly... you know, again, first of all, it's 26 years ago. My own view is, if there's a Bradley effect where folks tell pollsters they're going to vote for Obama and they're going to pull back at the last minute, look, it's not 10 points like it was 26 years ago. I don't think it's 0, but I think it's a hell of a lot closer to 0 than it is to 10. I mean, the country's come a long way. I also don't think necessarily that, at least the way the race is going right now, right this second, things can change in 30-something days, but the way it's going, it won't matter, because whatever it is, Obama's outside the number. The one thing I would say is that first of all, I want to say, I think McCain could still win this thing. It won't, it'd be a miracle, but I think it's still doable. And I think the problem with it is the way it would have to my own view is the way it would have to happen now is Obama would win the popular vote, and McCain would narrowly win a state like Ohio and a state like Pennsylvania. I mean, he would win the states he needs to win. He'd win them very narrowly and get creamed in New York and California and Illinois and some of the big states that Obama is absolutely going to cover. So that what would happen if McCain now wins this, I absolutely believe it's the only way he can win it. He's going to win a very narrow electoral college win by squeezing out very narrow margins in states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Florida, which is why I think Donna's right to dispatch anybody Clintons, et cetera, to those states and bring in anybody that can bring those states in, bring them in, working, particularly blue-collar working people. But what would happen is we would wake up the next day and Obama wins by the way, I'm not talking by 435 votes or something. He could win by millions of votes and still suffer a narrow electoral college victory to McCain. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I do think it's a possibility, and I think that the Obama campaign needs to guard against that.
Ed, what do you think about the racial dimension? You know, will America elect a black president?
I think they will. I think there's obviously a factor, and I think the reason the polls were close early on, it's not only that he's an African American, he is an unknown. If it was Colin Powell would have won 8 years ago, and the country would have come together because they had watched him on the national stage. So I think it's and plus the other part that's going on is all the internet stuff, that he's a Muslim, that he really isn't an American, that he's this, he's that, and you've got a guy who's not, who's been on the national stage for a year, and everybody knows who he is, and everybody's impressed by his speaking ability, but no one really knows who he is, and nobody really knows who's going to be around him. So I think the only way McCain has, and it's a campaign that nobody ever wants to run, but to really go out into those key areas and really raise those doubts. And it's not just that he's black, but because he's black and unknown, that I think has obviously affected the polls. I think any other candidate running this time would have been ahead by 10, 12 points from the start. I think it's been close because he's had to get known better. The debate helped. The next 2 debates may help. In the end, I think this is going to end up being a landslide election. I still think there's a slight chance that McCain can do that. But the problem with the McCain campaign, it's a tactical campaign. They get up every day and, oh, what should we do today? Let's make a. And the Obama campaign has been a very strategic, very disciplined campaign. We are the brand, and the brand is change. And every day, let's not let the brand get damaged. What McCain has to do is take, not about Barack, but he has to say, the brand, the change, what does the change mean? The change could be dangerous. In this time of crisis, don't you want steadiness? Not only just the commander-in-chief for the war, which is what was his advantage early on, but basically someone who's the economist-in-chief who can put the right people together and let's go battle Wall Street or whatever. The problem is that team's not there.
Donna, one of the things I noticed at CNN is the public opinion polls in the Hillary-Obama race were pretty accurate. I didn't see any Bradley effect in those polls. But the one thing that I would always notice is at 5 o'clock every voting day, we would be called into a conference room and we'd get the first round of exit polls. Mm-hmm. And almost invariably, the exit polls showed Obama doing better than the ultimate votes turned out to be. Now, that was curious to me, that it wasn't the political polls, the public opinion polls, it was the exit polls. Do you draw any inference from that, or do you think that matters, or does that tell you anything?
Well, in some states, it was because how they count votes, and also I think in some states is where the exit poll people were located right after, during voting time. So I think, of course, if it's Pennsylvania and you have a lot of people standing outside the precincts and, say, downtown Philly and some of the closer inner suburbs, yeah, it's going to skew Obama. But when you start getting the outer suburbs, exurbs, yeah, it skews Hillary. So because of the states that were involved, I didn't really become too alarmed by it, knowing the Democratic Party as I do and how the votes come in, and even how we conduct exit polls. All right, I'm going to say it, get it off my chest, because the next 30 days I'm going to be the best Catholic woman ever. If Obama loses, there's a possibility, as Joe said, that he will lose. He might lose. I would hope that people voted against him because they didn't like his energy plan, they didn't like his economic vision, they didn't like the fact that he came out against the war so early when everybody else was being culpable and going with the status quo. I would hope that people decided that perhaps during the debates he didn't do as well as he possibly could, and maybe Ed's right. We're at a time of trouble, and you want somebody who's been on the planet much longer.
A lot longer.
A hell of a lot longer, and God bless him. I know his mother, so hey, if somebody keep me around in 94, God bless me too. But my friends, I have to tell you, as a child who grew up in the segregated Deep South, de facto and de jure, we have come so far in this country. This country, and you have to have lived as long as I've lived and as long as many of you in this room, to have seen so much progress. I remember when I would get on a bus. This is after segregation was so-called over with. And my mother would tell me, because I would take my young brothers downtown, and she'd say, Donna, now you get on the bus, and you and your brothers, y'all go all the way to the back, and don't look at anybody. And of course, I would get on that bus all right, tell my brothers go straight to the back, don't look at anybody, because I didn't want them to get in trouble. I sat right there and said, now let me see if everything's okay. Is it really changed? We have changed. This is a more tolerant, a more open, a more progressive society. And yet we're having this conversation because he's biracial. He spent 9 months in the womb of a white woman. He was raised for the first 18 to 21 years by his white grandparents. He ain't spent no time in living rooms like I spent my childhood. And yet, he got out of school, went to Harvard, and all of a sudden he's uppity and something is wrong with him. What is wrong with us to suggest that some kid can go to Harvard if he's earned the grades to go there? I tell my friends, you may vote against him, but don't ever put me back in the back of the bus. I'm not going to the back of the bus. I'm not going to be afraid anymore. My black skin does not make me inferior. And might I add, being a female does not make me dumb.
Well,
now, we can relitigate all these fights on race and gender and sexual orientation till the cows come home. But at a time when we're in crisis, I want the best. I want the brightest. I want somebody to take me where we've never been as a country. Perhaps we've been too stuck in the past. That's why we can't go forward. So let the next 31 days be about ideas, about inspiration, and about strength of character. Let it be about something that brings us together, not tear us apart. I can sit on the stage with these men, and if I had time this afternoon, I'll go home and I'll cook for them. And we will all sit and drink something. But this is where we are as a country. We are comfortable with each other. Let's not play these games. Don't let people trick you. Don't let people divide you or distract you. My mother is not here. Her mother is not here. My grandfathers, everybody in my family, the men have served this country. Don't let no one take us back, because many of us are not going back. We're going forward. And come with us.
With that, I think we'll just say thank you to our panelists. Thank you. Thank you.